What happens when the applause fades and the spotlight no longer burns as brightly as it once did? For Steven Seagal, now in his early 70s, the answer is neither simple nor dramatic. His life story is not a straight ascent followed by a sudden fall, but rather a winding path shaped by ambition, reinvention, and the quiet realities that come with time. Once one of Hollywood's most recognizable action stars, Seagal's journey reflects the fragile nature of fame and the resilience required to endure beyond it. Behind the martial arts mastery and on-screen intensity lies a deeply human story of persistence, self-belief, and the constant effort to redefine purpose as the world changes. Roots in vulnerability. Steven Seagal was born in 1952 in Lansing, Michigan, before his family eventually settled in Fullerton, California. His early years were far from the image of strength audiences would later associate with him. As a child, he struggled with asthma and physical frailty, conditions that left him feeling vulnerable and often sidelined. Rather than discouraging him, these challenges sparked a fascination with discipline and self-control. He became drawn to martial arts not as a means of dominance, but as a path toward balance and inner strength. Even at a young age, Seagal seemed to understand that true power often comes from perseverance rather than brute force. Discovering Aikido. During his teenage years, Seagal encountered Aikido, a Japanese martial art that emphasizes fluid movement, redirection of energy, and harmony rather than aggression. At a time when most Western martial arts enthusiasts were drawn to striking styles, Aikido's philosophy resonated deeply with him. Its emphasis on control, calm, and efficiency aligned with his personal need to overcome physical limitations. He immersed himself in training with an intensity that set him apart from his peers, demonstrating a focus and commitment that hinted at a future shaped by discipline rather than chance. A bold move. East. In the early 1970s, Seagal made a decision that would permanently alter the course of his life. He moved to Japan. For a young American at the time, this was an uncommon and ambitious step. Japan was not merely a training destination, it was a cultural immersion. Seagal dedicated himself to mastering not only Aikido, but also the language, customs, and traditions of his adopted home. Living and training in Japan required humility and patience, qualities that would later become central to his public image. These years laid the groundwork for his credibility as a serious martial artist, rather than a performer merely playing one on screen. Breaking cultural barriers. Seagal's dedication paid off when he became one of the first foreigners to operate an Aikido dojo in Japan. This achievement was significant not only professionally, but culturally, reflecting a level of respect and trust rarely extended to outsiders. His fluency in Japanese and his commitment to traditional practice earned him recognition within martial arts circles. These formative years shaped his worldview, instilling a belief in discipline, hierarchy, and respect that he would later carry into every phase of his career. Returning to America. When Seagal eventually returned to the United States, he brought with him a depth of experience that set him apart. Settling in Los Angeles, he began teaching Aikido to private clients, including individuals connected to the entertainment industry. His reputation as a skilled martial artist grew steadily, not through publicity but through word of mouth. During this period, he also worked as a bodyguard, a role that placed him close to influential figures and exposed him to the mechanics of Hollywood from the periphery rather than the spotlight. A door opens. In Hollywood. Seagal's transition into acting was not the result of relentless auditions or traditional training, but rather a convergence of timing and opportunity. Hollywood agent Michael Ovitz recognized something compelling in Seagal's quiet confidence and suggested he explore film roles. This encouragement led to Seagal's screen debut in Above the Law in 1988. Playing Nico Toscani, a former CIA operative turned police officer, Seagal introduced audiences to a new kind of action hero, one defined by restraint, precision, and authenticity rather than flamboyance. A different kind of action. Star Above the Law was a commercial success, earning nearly $19 million domestically, and it positioned Seagal as a rising force in the action genre. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he relied less on exaggerated theatrics and more on realistic combat rooted in martial arts discipline. This approach resonated with audiences seeking something fresh. Seagal's calm demeanor and efficient movements conveyed confidence without bravado, offering a compelling alternative to the larger-than-life action heroes of the era. Riding the momentum. The early 1990s marked the height of Seagal's mainstream success. Films such as Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, and Out for Justice solidified his place in Hollywood. Each role reinforced his image as a disciplined, morally driven protagonist who used skill rather than excess force. His performances felt grounded, and his characters often reflected themes of justice, loyalty, and personal code. For a time, Seagal seemed uniquely positioned within the action genre, balancing intensity with control. The peak with Under Siege. In 1992, Seagal reached his commercial peak with Under Siege. The film was both a critical and box office success, earning widespread recognition and pairing him with respected actors in a tightly constructed narrative. His portrayal of Casey Ryback demonstrated maturity and depth, showcasing his ability to anchor a major studio production. For many fans, Under Siege remains the definitive Steven Seagal film, representing the moment when his martial arts credibility and cinematic presence aligned perfectly. Crafting a public persona. As his fame grew, so did the mythology surrounding Seagal. He was not just an actor, but a martial artist, philosopher, and global citizen. Stories about his background, training, and worldview became part of his public identity. This blending of fact and persona created intrigue, but also set high expectations. Over time, the distinction between the man and the myth blurred, shaping how audiences perceived both his work and his character. Expanding creative control. By the mid-1990s, Seagal sought greater creative input in his projects. He directed and starred in On Deadly Ground, a film that combined environmental themes with action storytelling. While reception was mixed, the project reflected his desire to explore meaningful topics through cinema. It also marked a shift from pure entertainment toward personal expression, illustrating a willingness to take risks even when outcomes were uncertain. Exploring music and identity beyond film, Seagal pursued music, releasing blues-influenced albums that reflected his personal interests and emotional landscape. These ventures were less about commercial success and more about creative fulfillment. For fans, they offered a glimpse into a quieter, more introspective side of a man often associated with intensity. Music became another avenue through which Seagal sought authenticity beyond the constraints of genre expectations. Industry shifts and new realities. As Hollywood evolved in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the action genre shifted toward ensemble casts, digital effects, and franchise-driven storytelling. Solo martial arts films became less prominent, and opportunities for Seagal in major studio productions diminished. Rather than stepping away entirely, he transitioned into direct-to-video projects, continuing to work consistently even as mainstream visibility declined. Staying in motion films like Exit Wounds and Half Past Dead kept Seagal active, though they lacked the cultural impact of his earlier work. These projects demonstrated a pragmatic approach to career longevity, emphasizing consistency over prestige. While critics often compared them unfavorably to his past successes, they represented a refusal to disengage from the craft that had defined his life. Entering reality television. In 2009, Seagal ventured into reality television with Steven Seagal, Lawman. The series documented his involvement as a reserve deputy sheriff in Louisiana, blending law enforcement with personal philosophy. The show sparked discussion about the nature of reality television and public personas, but it also revealed Seagal's continued interest in service, discipline, and community engagement. A global stage. While his Hollywood presence waned, Seagal's international profile grew. He cultivated relationships abroad, particularly in Russia, where his martial arts reputation and cultural interests found new relevance. His involvement in international events and cultural exchanges reflected a broader understanding of influence beyond cinema. These efforts demonstrated adaptability and a willingness to redefine identity on a global scale. Aging and adaptation. With time came physical limitations. a reality for anyone whose career relied heavily on movement and combat. Seagal adjusted accordingly, modifying his performances and public appearances to accommodate health considerations. Rather than signaling retreat, these adaptations reflected maturity and pragmatism, acknowledging the passage of time without surrendering purpose. Reflecting on legacy. Steven Seagal's legacy is complex and multifaceted. His early films remain influential within martial arts cinema, inspiring practitioners and filmmakers alike. His portrayal of controlled, disciplined heroism offered an alternative to excess and spectacle. Even his lesser-known projects reflect a willingness to explore identity and meaning beyond conventional success. Myth versus humanity. Throughout his career, Seagal navigated the tension between myth and reality. Public figures often become symbols rather than individuals, and Seagal was no exception. Over time, audiences began to see both the strengths and vulnerabilities behind the persona. This duality underscores a universal truth. Fame magnifies not only achievements, but also the human complexities beneath them. Cultural contribution. Beyond box office numbers, Seagal contributed to the global awareness of Aikido and martial arts philosophy. His films introduced countless viewers to concepts of balance, restraint, and inner control. For many, this influence extended beyond entertainment, shaping personal interest in discipline and self-development. The art of reinvention. Perhaps the most defining aspect of Seagal's journey is his ability to adapt. From dojo to film set, from Hollywood to international stages, he continuously sought relevance in changing environments. Reinvention was not always seamless, but it reflected resilience and a refusal to be confined by a single chapter of life. Life beyond fame. In his 70s, Seagal's life is marked less by spectacle and more by reflection. The intensity of early stardom has given way to a quieter engagement with legacy, culture, and personal meaning. His story encompasses ambition, reinvention, success, and adaptation, elements familiar to anyone navigating long-term purpose. A quiet conclusion. Steven Seagal's journey reminds us that fame is temporary, but influence can endure. His career illustrates the complexities of public life and the resilience required to evolve beyond it. While his cinematic peak belongs to the past, his contributions to martial arts culture and action cinema remain part of the broader cultural fabric. Ultimately, his story is not just about an action star, but about a human being navigating time, identity, and the ongoing pursuit of meaning after the spotlight dims.